This is Morley's Sound, and I'm Sean Wang. Today I'll be interviewing Mr. Peter Blasevick and Monsieur Steve Benoit. Mr. Blasevick has been working for about 2 years at Pingree as a school archivist. Could you start with your name and your position at Pingree?
Yeah, sure. My name is Peter Blasevick, and I am the archivist here at the school.
So what do you do as the school's digital archivist?
Well, the school originally hired me to be the digital archivist here. So they originally hired me to work on a specific project, which was setting up the scanning all of the sports pictures, the team sports pictures in the school, and setting up an interactive kiosk. So if you go into the sports center right now, you can see it's got the two kiosks in the middle of the Hall of Fame. Yeah. And so you can search for all of the sports teams and athletes and coaches and all that kind of stuff. So I did that. That took about 18 months to work on that project. Gather all the metadata, design the web app with the tech team downstairs, work with vendors and interns, all that kind of stuff. And then once that was over, now I'm kind of transitioning a little bit more into traditional archives. It's going to be probably, I guess, about half and half, where working with half of the time with more traditional archive stuff, like all of the things that we have collected over the last 150 years here at the school.
Can you talk a little bit about the archiving process, or maybe the different types of things that you may archive, and how do you get that stored?
Okay, well, you can imagine over the history of the school, there's a lot of stuff. So the school never had a full-time archivist before, so there are a lot of things that need attention, and basically my job right now in regards to that is I have to go through all of the, all of our holdings, everything that we have, and see what needs care, what needs attention, what needs to be, rehoused, put in new boxes or new, some sort of holding, and also go through and make recommendations to the school on what I think we should digitize and make available in a wider format, maybe on our website or maybe another web app like the one we made for the Sports Hall of Fame, that kind of thing.
What have been some of the most interesting pieces that you found over your time working at Pingree?
Oh gosh. Old photographs are always great. They're always a lot of fun. Writings or communications, school communication from 100 years ago, and see how different things were approached back then as opposed to now. Something that's always interesting are any kind of letters or anything that were written by between faculty members or faculty and staff or faculty and students. We have a number of letters from Dr. Pingree that he wrote to students, just maybe notes or maybe letters, maybe he was on vacation, he wrote and they were then donated back to the school. So that's always interesting to see how people thought back then, that kind of thing.
So working at Pingree, you have, I guess, a position in which you're interacting with students less. Can you talk about maybe what the Pingree atmosphere feels like to you, and maybe if whether or not the honor code really comes into your day-to-day?
The atmosphere that from the time that I showed up for my first interview here, when I first came here almost 2 years ago now. Right. It was a very kind of inviting and accepting atmosphere. I think both for faculty and staff, which is what I was first exposed to, and students as well. I think it's great because, again, students and faculty and staff are really, I think, encouraged to really figure out what they want to do and who they are and directions that they want to go in. And at least for the students, they're given the opportunity to start to figure that out.
Yeah.
What they want to do.
Right.
They'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
I think the big thing about the honor code there's everyday stuff,
right.
in archives, just like everything else. It's upstairs in the library. There's a similar situation where faculty or staff will come to borrow things from the archives, and so there's that basic, very surfacey kind of like, are things getting returned, or people telling me when they take things, all that kind of stuff. I think that archives themselves are an important piece of telling history in a very honest and honorable, I guess, way, because, I was just talking to Dr. Jones about this the other day. When you're writing history today, you're seeing it through the lens of today, even though it happened 100 years ago or whatever, right? And so we're bound to see things in our own way, and it's a lot easier to, the more information and the more documentation and artifacts and things that you have from that time period, make it easier to tell that honest kind of story of what happened. And the same thing with when I'm writing metadata for a piece, or when I'm collecting artifacts for maybe a display, or for trying to tell some sort of historical story. It's important to make sure that information is accurate, and I'm not telling the story that I want to tell.
Right.
I want to tell the story that actually happened, that kind of thing. But what I was saying before, it's important to know for the students who are here, it's important, of course, to know like learn all the things you're supposed to learn, right? When the Battle of Gettysburg happened, or what's the atomic weight of helium, or whatever, But the key is to get students to succeed, right, when they leave here, and that comes back to that honor code thing. And so that's if nothing else that you learn, right, when you're here, that's the thing to learn. So that's the atmosphere of the place. It took me a while to get around back to that, but
Can you talk a little bit about maybe the process of how you create the stories when you're finding your archives, as you mentioned, writing the metadata, finding the right pieces?
Well, the interesting thing right now is that I am in the process of starting to put together these collections of things that we have, because as we were talking about earlier, there hasn't been a full-time archivist here.
Right.
So we need to create these collections of things. We have maybe items or artifacts about something in a number of different places. When I was putting together the photograph archive for the sports teams, there were photographs all over the place. I had to maybe get them. Some of them were hanging on the wall. Some of them were in yearbooks. Some of them were here. So it's really trying to get a comprehensive collection of whatever it is at first that you're doing. Another one that we're doing right now is I'm putting together or getting in one place and organizing all of the digital photography that we've done here in the school. And that's been since, I don't know, maybe 2000 or so that, it's been a regular thing. Before then, it was mostly just regular photography, analog. And photographs were in this place and in this place and in this place, and so they needed to all be brought together and put into on one server, and and naming things. So it's so much of it is organization, and that you have to do that before you can really be able to collect things together and tell a story about something and really know what you have. But you're always on the lookout for the interesting things, like we were talking about before. Things with like a little personal touch are cool. If you find a letter that Dr. Pingree wrote to a student, that might be really helpful in telling some kind of story.
Have you found any documents pertaining to the honor code by any chance?
From what I've seen is that I believe that we have in the archives some information that pertaining to that. We don't have a collection of those things. So that as I'm putting together those collections, I would imagine that the honor code is going to be one of those things that I put a collection together for.
Right. Can you talk about your past, how you decided to become an archivist, and maybe your work before you came to Pingree?
Right before I was here, I worked at Rutgers University. I was in their digital libraries area, and I was a project manager. And I wanted to stay in education. This is my second career. I was a musician before I did this. And so, and I just decided that I wanted to work in education. I was always had a knack for organizing stuff, and I liked old things, so it seemed like a fit. Let's be an archivist, and it's worked out great because I love it. Yeah. And so the reason I came here, or that I applied for the position here, was I wanted to stay. I wanted to work in education, but I didn't think that I wanted to stay in the university area. I wanted to, whatever I was doing, to have some sort of effect on younger students as opposed to adults, which are obviously important as well. But I just thought that I'd be more interested in working in an environment that was working with younger kids. So, and then as far as the gig, I just answered the ad and came in and everything worked out great.
What were some of the projects that you worked at Rutgers beforehand?
I managed a thing called the New Jersey Environmental Digital Library, and that was a grant-funded program that was funded by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, the DEP, and that's down in Trenton. Yeah. And so, I would travel down there once a month, and we would go through deciding what we were going to digitize. It was all about digitizing and putting together this online library of materials relating to the environment here in New Jersey. So that was exciting. Working with them, I thought it seemed like it was pretty important work, and also trying to find new collections to bring into the library, and then have the archivist there go through the collections and decide what they thought was worth digitizing, and then my team upstairs in the library would work on them.
What are some of the differences between working at the university level and then working here at Pingree?
That's a great question. Well, working at Pingree, I think, is a great balance, because I worked for a long time in the private sector. Yeah. And then working, obviously, at a state university is a different kind of thing. And Pingree is a fantastic meld of those two worlds. And as much as I enjoyed working at Rutgers, and also at William Patterson University, I worked there for a while as well. Was always a creature of people, their expectations that are built in the private sector more so, I think. Yeah. And so there are deadlines that have to be hit, and there are, like I said, certain expectations that are put forth that are different from place to place. It's a different thing. And so that immediacy of, a project, here it is, you have until June 1st to get it done, and, well, it probably needs to be done.
Yeah.
And things are a little more, they fluctuate a little more in the, university world.
Yeah.
There's 5 committees you have to be on and all that kind of thing, and before something gets done. And so while obviously the work that gets done at universities is very important, for me, more of a balance between the two worlds was, and this was like the perfect fit for me.
Mm-hmm. Can you describe your day-to-day at Pingree?
Yeah. I work a pretty traditional school schedule. I'm at my desk around 8, and done 4:30 usually at the end of the day, that kind of thing. And I'll have any number of projects that I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
So, that are more long-term, that I'll be working on a little bit every day and try to section my time to work on at least each one, some every day, unless there is something pressing that needs to get done.
Right.
And then I'll just devote my day to that. But also, I work as a big role. I see a big role for the archives as support for other departments as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I work a lot with communications department, the advancement department, the business office, and if there is a need for information or they're putting out a press release and they need a specific picture, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there'll be those calls where I will have to stop what I'm doing and start doing that as well. But it's just making sure you're tracking the projects that you're working on, making sure you're using your project management software and all that kind of stuff, so you know what's next. And,
right.
Because if you're working on a lot of different projects at once, if you're not keeping track of everything, it's easy to get lost and not know what's next.
Can you go a little into any of the projects you're working on, or ones that you're excited for?
Yeah. Well, there are ones that are going to be recurring. Say,
Sure.
for example, there's the Athletics Hall of Fame,
Mm-hmm.
that every summer it's going to get changed. So
right
now we're starting to work on writing the stories and collecting the artifacts and the information for the 2016-2017 school year that just is about to finish up soon.
Right.
And so over the summer I need to working with a team of people, not just me, but it's with a lot of people, the athletics department and communications, work with redoing all of those cases that are in there showing the fall and the winter and the spring sports seasons. And so they need to be redone every year. So that's like a regular thing that's always getting worked on. The archives themselves, right now the archives are located in a little closet upstairs, and they're going to be moving into that the library classroom that's up there.
Okay.
So that classroom is going to be kind of a hybrid space, a combination of the archives and like a meeting room for the library staff, and so that's really exciting, because that's where a lot of that, I'll be finding a lot of stuff that I didn't know we had, because I'll be moving things and putting them into and organizing them. So that's good. Another thing is we're working on are the organizing and getting everything a very specific schedule for organizing and keeping records just for the school in general. So it's another thing that I'm working on.
Yeah.
It's a lot of, you've seen the theme here, organizing things.
Organizing things.
That's kind of what I do. Not super exciting.
Yeah. Are you an organized person in your day-to-day life, I guess?
Yeah, not to a fault, I guess, but without question. Like, if you look at my inbox right now, there's like one email in my inbox. They have little folders and they go into it, and that's the way it works. My wife and I always laugh because she's the complete opposite of me. She's got, like, if we always joke, if you could see in my brain, they would be like little drawers with things in them. If you could see in her brain, it would be a giant word cloud. But they both work. That works for her. This works for me. And it's great. But yeah, I guess sure, I'm pretty organized.
What is maybe your favorite thing about working in archives and archiving?
I really enjoy making information available to other people. So just, I'm sure you've heard it from Mrs. Hymas or people in the library or just teachers as well. Any collection of information that you have is only as useful as it is accessible or findable, right? It doesn't matter how many great books we have upstairs. If there isn't a catalog to find them, who cares, right? And it's the same thing with, we have all of this history here, and if it's not organized or findable, then it's like it doesn't exist. So making more stuff more available to more people, right? I guess that's that's kind of what I enjoy the most about doing it.
Great, Mr. Blasevick. I am just about done with my questions.
Cool.
Are there any stories or pieces of advice you'd like to tell those listening?
Well, I mean, I guess we were talking about the honor code a lot. Obviously, that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this. I guess for an important thing, and that's that I live with a lot, which is it's really, that honor code is great, and it's really important for when people are watching, right? It's easy to do the right thing when people are watching, for any number of reasons, right? For peer pressure or consequences or ego or whatever it is, you do it right because people know that you're doing the right thing. But maybe spending as much time as you got thinking about making sure that when no one's watching and there's no possible chance of anybody finding out if you do the right thing or not, what are you doing then, right? And so that's, I think that is, as far as bringing it back around to the honor code, that's that would be something I think about a lot.
Great. So, Mr. Peter Blasevick, excuse me, the Pingree School archivist, Mr. Blasevick, thank you so much.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you to Mr. Blasevick for interviewing with me. Next is Monsieur Benoit. He teaches French, is an LGBT affinity group leader, coordinator of ISP, and next year's department head of world languages. Can you start with your name and your positions at Pingree?
Sure. My name is Steve Benoit. I'm a French teacher. Next year I'll be the department chair for the Department of World Languages. And I'm also the coordinator of the Independent Senior Project Program. And I'm the faculty advisor to the LGBTQ affinity group. And I work in the multicultural team.
When did you first come to Pingree?
I first came to Pingree in 2014.
Can you talk a little bit about what it was like in your previous work at different schools, and maybe what are some of the differences between here and there?
Sure. For the past 16 years, immediately before coming to Pingree, I worked at Solbury School in New Hope, Pennsylvania. It was a small boarding and day school about an hour north of Philadelphia on the Delaware River. Really only about 45 minutes from Pingree, though. Different environment. It was much smaller. Grades 7 through 12, there are only 225 students. And like I said, with the boarding component, there were about 40 students from other countries that were living in the dormitories. And so it was a very internationally diverse school. Also a very informal school. The teachers and students were all on a first name basis. So I was never Mr. Benoit, I was Steve to my students. So that that was a little bit of a shift coming to Pingree after
Yeah.
that. When people said Mr. Benoit, I looked over my shoulder for my father.
What's it been like working at Pingree, and what are some of the changes you've seen over the years?
Well, I've certainly seen some changes, but really with a limited amount of time here. Really, this is the end of my third year. I don't know that I can speak from speaking to those changes. I don't know if I can call those a trend or just normal year-to-year changes. Coming to Pingree has been great. It's. I tell some of my friends, especially my former colleagues, that it's kind of like coming to the big city after being in a small town for so many years. But it's been nice. It's been a good change.
What role do you think the honor code plays at Pingree, and maybe in your day-to-day life here?
I've actually thought about that quite a bit. You know, we didn't have an explicit honor code at my last school, although I felt like there was always an implicit honor code at play. Here, you know, it's something taken very seriously. There are ceremonies at the beginning of the year, you know, the signing of the honor code and the what's it called? The convocation, is that what it's called? The convocation at the beginning of the year. I find that to be really cool. I love the fact that it was originally something that was student generated, and that it's something that the whole community needs to buy into. That's absolutely true, and I like that the teachers have to sign it as well, and the administrators need to sign it as well, because if it's just the students, that's skewed in the wrong direction. You know, one thing I always try to emphasize to my advisees as well is I think it goes so much beyond the, you know, I can take a test with no adults around and I'm not going to cheat on it. It goes so much more beyond that, and I tell them it's really what you do when no one's looking. You know, how do you act the same way when no one's looking as you do if someone's right there with you? And it's I think a set of tenets like the honor code can really guide us to act in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. So a big question that goes around in Pingree is kind of, where do you balance excellence and honor?
Are you asking me?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. Yeah, so excellence can't come at the expense of honor, or it can, but I mean, then frankly it's no longer excellence, right? And so there definitely is a tension there, though. There's no denying that, and I feel like the pressure towards excellence, when people are living in that stress, being pushed towards achievement and excellence, sometimes they can make a decision that's not really them, right? It doesn't really reflect their honor and their values. And I know that happens, but I think that's unfortunate to have that those high expectations of others ultimately dictate what someone's personal choices are with regard to their values and their integrity. I don't have an easy answer for that one.
Maybe in your personal life, do you ever have those? Do you have experiences between trying to find that balance, or when you're trying to strive for excellence and you're worried that your honor's at stake?
Yes, I mean, I think everybody does. Everybody who I know, I think, does struggle with that. And I think that if we, as humans, aren't constantly aware of that, if we're not cognizant of that and respectful of that, it's that sense of complacency or ignorance that would lead us to act poorly and make those decisions that place achievement over integrity. Yeah, it's something that I think about all the time.
Do you ever feel like there's things we could do better as a community, whether it's as a general thing for Pingree or if there's some things specific with the honor code?
I do. And this has been on my mind a bit lately too. You know, when I go around the school and I see, this might seem very petty, but when I see students leaving dishes on top of the trash cans, that's not a very honorable act. I think that is assuming that someone else is there to pick up the pieces and clean up and do what we should be socially responsible for and do. You know, and I hear people, it's really a matter of consideration. The stuff that I see that our shortfalls are kind of the little things that kind of add up. You know, people walking down the hallway while classes are going on and being really loud, right? Or going outside for lunch right outside of classrooms and you know, I understand you want to have fun, it's lunchtime, but you also have to sort of be aware of the bigger picture. So I think it's these smaller matters of respect that I think we could do a whole lot better on. Might seem small, but they definitely add up. Yeah.
Are there things with the honor code that you might want to, if you could rewrite the honor code, that you would, or clauses or concepts that you would add in?
Don't know. I haven't thought that deeply about it, I have to confess. Yeah.
So kind of moving off the honor code specifically, but can you talk about the recent election in the U.S. And maybe how our community weathered through the political storm?
I don't think our school community was that different from the larger community. I think there were divisions. There were. I was part of a conversation the day of the election. At the end of the day, the day after the election. At the end of the day, where students and faculty were invited to just sort of decompress, and it ended up being a session where people who were really upset about the election results shared, and then was kind of curious why Trump supporters hadn't been there, but it turns out that there had been a different kind of a celebratory gathering for them. The initial intent of having that meeting at the end of the school day, the day after the election, was to have people come together and kind of heal a little bit and communicate and have an open dialogue that wasn't shouting, because the primary season and the election season had just been so brutal. Didn't work out that way, but I ultimately think it was the best outcome, to have people from both camps to just speak freely among themselves and not worry about the hurt feelings, because everything was so raw that day. There were some people walking around school with Trump hats the day after the election, and we had the dress code to point to, and they were asked to remove them, and they did. But there were a lot of, it was a traumatic day for a lot of people. I understand it was a happy day for some people too. But I think the trauma was real for a significant segment of the population, and I think that was everywhere. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. How do you think the community has moved on from then? Lessons that we've learned that you might want to share, or specific events that you might want to talk about?
I don't think we're through it yet. I don't think we're. I mean, we've gone through the rawest of the raw, right? The period immediately after the election, but I think we're still kind of in this period of uncertainty. The constant news alerts popping up in people's phones, and what now? That kind of question. I think that I can maybe answer that question better in a year, but I don't. I feel like I'm still too in it in order to answer it well.
So moving back into the Pingree community, what has it been like working as one of the heads for the LGBT affinity group in GSA, and what are some big takeaways you have for students in those groups?
Working with the affinity group has been probably my favorite part of my job. Sort of letting people speak openly about something that they're not necessarily comfortable speaking openly with outside of that space, and sort of deriving comfort from each other. And it's not all sadness and woes, it's joys as well. I think the takeaways for the community, without getting into the granular level, because I can't talk about that stuff anyway. There's a confidentiality concern. I think takeaways for the larger community is that what most people see is really only the tip of the iceberg, right? There's a certain assumption that, well, there's probably only 5 or 6 LGBTQ plus people in our community because that's who's out. Well, there's a lot more than that here.
Right.
And the experience isn't always what you see, right? The subtle homophobia or subtle heterosexism or overt heterosexism that we experience on a daily basis is eventually starts to feel a little demoralizing, and it's someone referred to microaggressions as death by paper cuts, and that's kind of what it starts to feel like after a little while, and I feel like with more people getting empowered by coming to the affinity group, and sometimes we'll have 30 people there, which I think would surprise a bunch of people. I feel like people are starting to find their voice, and that's what my hope is, that people really find their voice, and that other people realize that that what might seem benign isn't always benign, and just be mindful of our words and assumptions about other people, and life will be a happier place.
What are some of your thoughts on the recent movements after we had the Hudson Taylor run? And I'll ask you about that in a moment. Things like the Pride Wall. I'm not sure if we've had the Pride game yet, but that is coming up soon. And of that sort, yeah.
I mean, I think it's great that that people are willing to engage and give and make outward gestures of acceptance. I mean, there were some troubling things on the Pride Wall, and I never touched any of it. But I think that there are some students who felt very. I actually witnessed some of this. Some students who were straight allies who felt very protective of that space and wanting it to only be not a place to say, well, you're okay, but I don't agree with you. Well, you can leave the "I don't agree with you" part off, right? That's not what this is intended to be about. So I got to see some people's, their fierce ally side come out, and I like that.
What are some of your thoughts on the Hudson Taylor event? And how do you think that spoke to the community?
I think it spoke loudly to the community. I thought that his presentation was fantastic. He was a very dynamic speaker. He connected with a lot of students. His message resonated with a lot of students that were his target audience, frankly. You know, here's this straight male athlete, and he resonated with other straight male athletes. And I think that has historically been the toughest spot for the toughest segment of the population for LGBTQ athletes, has been the straight male athletic segment of the school. And so I think we needed a straight male voice to deliver that message. And I think that's a shame in some ways, but it's just reality, right? So like, we should have been able to invite a gay athlete to come up and deliver the same message, but I don't think it would have resonated the same way. So I really appreciated the fact that Dr. Artis was willing to bring him in. I referred his name to her based on some experiences I'd heard of in other schools, and she contacted him immediately. They had conversations, and then he ended up coming in. So I think it was really a positive step for our community.
This is probably among my final questions. As the head of ISP activities, what are some of the changes you've made between, I think, last year and this year? Can you talk about things you're excited about, and maybe also things you're excited about for becoming department chair of world languages next year?
Sure. Gradually, since coming in to work on ISPs, I've been doing my best to tighten up the process, to make things more serious. Not that they weren't serious before, but to just be a little bit more consistent, and to encourage students to really see this as an opportunity as opposed to one last thing that they have to do, but really an opportunity to design how their own high school career is going to end. You kind of want it to be on a crescendo, not just in a plop. And I think we've been seeing more of that. I think we've been seeing students move away from the blow-off model. And some of that is because we don't let it go by anymore. And some of it is, I think there's a genuine desire to do that. This year, kind of on a different level, we got rid of the paper and made it all electronic, the whole process. And that streamlined the process. That made it a whole lot easier, I think, for the ISP committee to really sort through all of the proposals and give feedback. It takes a while for feedback to come back to students, and that's something I would like to change, but just the reality is we have 140 seniors, and we have 12 people to read every proposal, and it just takes a long time. But every year we make some changes, and every year we're hoping that they're changes for the better. Next year I'm going to have some company, as I think I'll be a co-coordinator, not a coordinator of the ISPs, and so I'm excited about that. Not official who it is yet. I know who it is, but that's not official yet, so I can't say. But so that's something I'm really looking forward to.
And what are some future thoughts for being department chair next year? Well,
future thoughts for being department chair. I'm really excited for that. I have some wonderful colleagues. It's one of the largest departments in the school as far as numbers of teachers, and just some great minds in there. And I'm looking forward to a lot of collaboration. I have some ideas. I'm not someone who likes to go in and make significant changes the first year, because I think Norm Lavalette has done a fantastic job over the last 26 years. I think 26 years, maybe-ish, a long time as department head. So I think change is most effective when it happens gradually and thoughtfully and with everybody on board. But absolutely, I'm looking forward to learning from and with my colleagues in the department, a lot of professional growth is going to happen together, and I have some ideas for that too. But you know, if we ever think that we're done growing and learning as teachers, then we should probably retire from teaching. And so I'm looking forward to growing with my colleagues.
What are some of your favorite things about being a teacher?
The students. I mean, I love language, or else I wouldn't be teaching language. But what I really like is working with students and sharing knowledge and passion for a subject with them. And it's really with the students that I get energized. I like doing other stuff too. I like working with colleagues. I like doing professional development. But when it comes down to it, the part of the day that I look forward to is being in the classroom with students.
All right, Monsieur. So I'm just about done with my questions. Are there any stories or pieces of advice you'd like to give anyone listening?
That's a broad question, Sean.
It is a very broad question, I know. And that's precisely why.
Yeah. You know, I'm not one who likes to go around dispensing advice. Other than sort of annoyingly broad and vague things like, you know, enjoy your youth and be respectful of one another and all that. But those are just sort of axioms to live by. Those I can't think of anything. I'm sorry.
Do you have a favorite axiom?
Favorite axiom? I'm sure I do, but I can't think of it right now.
Okay. All right.
If I think of it, I'll let you know.
All right. I can always put it in post.
Yeah.
All right. Monsieur Benoit, thank you so much for the interview.
Sure.
Monsieur Steve Benoit, French teacher, director of ISP, and LGBT affinity group leader. Monsieur Benoit, thank you again.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you to Monsieur Benoit for taking the time to speak with me. For future episodes, please follow my updates on the Pingree Honor Award Facebook page or on the Morally Sound YouTube playlist.